who is the secretary of the Kennel Club and lives in Bury St Edmunds and is on the line to us here at BBC Radio Suffolk. Caroline, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you share with all of us the horror and sadness of this particular case.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, very, very rare, but here we have another child lost.
Well, as you rightly say, it is very rare, but on the other hand, what we don't want is any attack of this type, and certainly not death. It's just appalling. What we need to do is to see dogs far better socialised, and just as importantly, we need to see children taught to behave safely around dogs so that these types of attacks don't occur.
Children are notoriously keen to push, prod and pull pets of any shape or size. It's just what children do.
Absolutely. The result of that is that obviously with any dog, particularly a dog where there is a question over its temperament, as in this particular case, they should never ever be left alone with a child and with the ability for that child to, as you say, push, prod, play around. Children not only like to investigate things, but they are also unpredictable in the way that they behave. They can scream, shout, do all sorts of things that a dog that is not used to children finds very odd, peculiar, and worrying.
What should we do after this case? Should we look at tighter controls on particular types of dog, particular breeds, or should we look at who's owning a dog?
Well, I'd go for the owning the dog, actually. That would be my route, preferred, because we already have a law that targets particular breeds, which doesn't work. And this case very much highlights that fact. You can have any number of laws that talk about particular breeds, and you won't target the bad temperament or bad behaviour that comes about as a result of poor ownership. So what we would like to see is the Dangerous Dogs Act completely repealed and replaced with something which effectively controls ownership and dogs in order to make sure that these type of incidents can't occur simply because people are taught how to behave properly with their dogs.
How would you go about that step? I mean, when we got our dog, he's a rescue dog, he came from the Blue Cross, we as potential owners were vetted quite heavily.
Quite right.
And yet, if I just decided not to go and get a rescue dog, if I decided to go and get a pit bull or whatever it might have been, I could have just gone and got one out of Exchange in Mart or somewhere.
You certainly could, but if you go to Exchange and Mart, you will see that they are actually extremely responsible in their approach. They appreciate that people will go and buy animals without a second thought, but what they do in conjunction with ourselves and other dog-related organisations is print some pretty hefty guidelines as to what they recommend that you should do before you buy any puppy, and that's make sure that A, you have the circumstances, and B, you have the time to train that dog. But then, having said all that, if you do go and buy your puppy, what you should be doing is then taking it to a proper training class in your local area and joining up with something like the Kennel Club's Good Citizen Dog Scheme, which actually trains people to train their dogs.
So we shouldn't just take a dog on and let it do what it wants. We should, from the very word go, sit down, discuss taking on the dog, and then discuss how to train it and make it part of the family.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing you should do is to decide within the family whether you genuinely have the time to care for a dog and whether or not you also have time to train it properly and to socialise it. I mean, socialisation is so important in the early stages, because that's when a dog learns the rules, the manners for the rest of its life. And particularly if you're going to keep a dog with children, you need to make sure that that dog actually has some idea of what a child is all about. And leaving a dog unattended with small children, particularly when it's not used to children, is extremely irresponsible.
It's difficult to talk about this particular case, but there is talk this morning that this dog's owner had been warned in the past that this dog was not right. Something was not right with it. Are owners quick enough to take that advice? I don't think in some cases we are.
No, I would absolutely agree with you. I think the problem comes that the dog is actually perfectly okay with its owner, and therefore they don't want to believe that it could be out of control or badly behaved with somebody else. So the answer is not to leave it with somebody else and to make sure that it's always with you and under proper control. What we would like to see in our proposed change to the law is that magistrates have much stronger powers to ensure that, or to insist that people keep their dogs at home with them, that they keep them under control, that they train them properly, that they muzzle them if necessary, and so on and so forth. They have much wider powers.
Sure. This kind of attack obviously is as serious as it gets, but a lesser attack. I mean, we've had an experience ourselves. Leslie was out walking the dog, and a dog had got out of a house, a violent dog, known to be a violent dog. It attacked her and attacked our dog and chased it 5 streets home. Intent on killing it, not to play with it. It was out to kill it. No. We reported it, and frankly, we might as well have not bothered because nobody's really interested.
No, I think this is part of the problem, because the dog that chased you probably was not one of those breeds that people recognise as being so-called dangerous. And therefore we pay no attention to it, or we don't take it very seriously. Any dog, whether it's a crossbreed, a mongrel, or a particular breed, can be a danger, can be a nuisance. Equally well, it can be a joy to own. And what we need to do is to be looking at the law that actually, at the moment, homes in on particular breeds when it should be looking at what dogs do and what owners do. It should not be looking at particular breeds. But it doesn't
cover crossbreeds, does it?
No, well, it does actually. What it does is it refers to the type of dog. So in other words, it looks at the pit bull terrier and it says a dog that looks a little bit like this, which can apply then to a large number of dogs. But again, it doesn't actually address the problem. And what our motto is deed, not breed. So what we should be looking at is what the dog and the owner do, rather than on the breed of dog that's involved. So it's all a question of changing our priorities and actually focusing on what the problem is, rather than on a particular breed of dog, which actually is not the problem.
OK, Caroline, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Caroline Kisko is the secretary of the Kennel Club and lives here in Suffolk with her thoughts. The Kennel Club website is pretty good, actually. There's some good advice on there. kennelclub.org.uk. There's lots of advice on there about the Good Citizen Dog Scheme, also a Safe and Sound Scheme devised for children and for teachers to download. It advises on how to react to dogs. That's kennelclub.org.uk. Well worth a look. It's